What is up, guys? Your boy Raven here today, and today we're gonna analyze the meta from World Championships 2019 that were in DC, Washington. And I know, I'm fighting a really 34 Celsius heat, so I may not, talk as fast as I can, but I'm gonna try to bring the whole data here. So we're gonna look at some statistics, and we're gonna talk about day 1 first, then we're gonna talk about day 2, of course, with statistics going over here that you can see, and we'll see what decks what decks perform the best and what decks actually were represented the most. So let's just look at the day 1, shall we? Because the day 1 I think was the most interesting. Of course, in terms of day 2 we have divisions. For the day 1 I do not have tables of divisions, so I apologize for that, but let's just look at the day 1. So that is how the day 1 looked like, and reading from the top, so because we're gonna go from the top, so we've had 107 Pikachu and Zekrom players. This is twice as much, literally twice as much as the Blacephalon GX players, which are the second with 65 decks. Then we have Malamar, Garchomp, Giratina with 64, and Reshizard with only 59. Of course, we also have Malamar, Giratina. So the one was a Tina Chomp, then now it's Malamar Giratina 59, and Malamar Ultra Necrozma 27. So combining that, Malamar definitely was the most represented archetype, because if you sum up and you add this 59 to 64 plus the 27, you'll have way above 107, that is Pikachu as Zekrom. Yet we did not see him perform that well, right? Looking at the day 1, of course, the whole day 1. Then we have only 17 Gardevoir and Sylveon players. That is quite interesting, that we have only 17 players playing that fantastic deck that really, was there on stream almost all the time. Of course, with mediocre success, we know that that deck lost to Behaim, but again, the deck was quite well received by you guys, by everyone here. Then we've got only 16 Mew and Mewtwo GX toolboxes, 12 Weevil Naganadel GX decks. Of course, that is what is called a dark box, so only 12 dark boxes, then Spiritomb 8, and the rest we've got Naganadel, Keldeo Bronzong, Shedinja Control 5 copies, Aerodactyl GX 3 copies. I mean, that is ridiculous, right? Blacephalon Unbroken Bond, so Baby Blaze was even there with 3 decks only of Baby Blaze. We've got Gengar and Mimikyu with Omastar, so we've got an item lock, which was crazy to me to bring something like that. I mean, I can understand why someone would bring that, but it's just crazy enough that in the current format someone would think that would actually perform to the point of becoming world champion. 3 copies of that deck. But again, the next deck proved me wrong. Behaim, right? The deck that is a sensation from those worlds. Of course, with only 2 copies in the whole world championship. Then we have 2 Arcanites, 2 Whimsicott GX's deck, and 12 others. So we can assume there were 12 different decks. They just had 1 copy of each, or 1 player playing that deck. So what the day 1 metagame says us, everyone, normally I thought, coming to the World Championships, and I think you as well, guys, that we're gonna see a ton of Reshizard, Mew, and Dark Boxes. Honestly, those were the 3 that I really thought we're gonna see the most. I thought we might see, 50 Pika ROMs, around 30, let's say 30 Blaze GXs, of course Malamar, right, represented quite well, and we knew that because that's an easy deck to build, but I did not expect a Pika ROM players, to surpass all other archetypes. Of course Malamar as well, if you combine all the archetypes of Malamar, it is the most played deck. And those 2 most played decks, if you look at day 2, they really did performed to a certain degree. Like you would, they performed to the point of okay, there were so many of them, they had to win at certain point. That's how I feel about those statistics, that there were so many Malamar players, there were so many Picaron players, that just some of those decks had to slip. Even though there was such a good deck, they were fantastic decks, well, they just had to slip around other decks. Again, Blaze GX, I said that I forgot to mention it in my top 5 list, and definitely not a bad deck that performed. So what do you guys think about the day one? Do you think was surprising to see that many of different decks being brought to the day one, or you thought what, we're gonna see less of those like Mew boxes, or we would see more of dark boxes? Because that was surprising really to me. But what is the most surprising is, I'm going to just scroll down a little bit, and you'll see over here at day 2, and I'm going to bring that day 2 down over here so you see the comparison. So now let me just, bam, that's a day 2. Those are official stats, of course, and on the orange you can see juniors, green are seniors, and blue are masters. So to the day 2 for the World Championships, again, the most represented deck in the day 2 is definitely Pikachu and Zekrom, with 22 masters, 21 seniors, and 27 juniors. But how about this Malamar decks, right, that we've talked previously, because if you combine all the Malamar archetypes, you knew that this is definitely gonna be a deck that more people brought than Picarom. So let's look at here. Malamar Giratina, only 9 masters, 9 seniors, and 7 juniors. So again, combining that, we've got around 60 to 70 Picaroms, and right now, so it's 9, 18, let's say 25 Malamar Giratina. Let's look if there's anything else. We also see Malamar Garchomp, so Tinachomp, 15, only 555, and Malamar Necrozma, 343. So even though in total all the archetype of Malamar was that well represented, more than 130 decks easily, only around 40 came to the day 2, right? And Picarom, of course, showed the dominance, showed the consistency of literally more than 60% of the decks going to a day 2. But of course, it's not about that here. We've got also Mew and Mewtwo performing on a top level here, with 8 masters, 8 seniors, and 7 juniors. No, sorry, 5 juniors going with this deck. And of course, Green's Reshiram, Charizard, the second most most played deck here in the day 2. Definitely the results are showing that. Of course, are there decks that were only specific to one of the groups? Yes, they were. So for example, we've got Gengar and Mimikyu Omastar making day 2. I made fun of those decks, but well, 2 out of 3 made it to day 2. Behaim both made to the day 2, and Whimsicott GX made it to day 2. Of course, those were all masters, and Oranguru Stall also only masters. Then we have Naganadel GX, Aerodactyl GX, and Arcanine Unbroken Bonds for seniors. And of course, other Reshiram and Charizard, 1 for juniors and 2 for seniors. Quite intriguing, statistic if you think about it, that the better you were prepared for Picarom, the better you performed. And I think that's how it is, and I think that was what people were coming into. Like, they were prepared for Picaroms, Reshizads, maybe Dark Box, because it was performing quite well and there was a ton of hype about it. And Mewtwo, well, that was a surprise, let's be honest. And Blaze, I think people were preparing for Blaze. So those 5 decks people were preparing for, and definitely you can see that people beating it to a certain degree, and the decks that they were not preparing for just raising slowly right now. Of course, Dark Toolbox, it is an inconsistent deck. It's really hard to make it consistent. Of course, probably in the span of those next 3 months of Unified Mind season, we will see probably a raise in consistency. Maybe in the future, when the new Persian GX will appear, we might see a comeback. But the fact that only 6 decks total, 2 masters, 1 seniors and 3 juniors of the dark box went into day 2. That is a really bad statistic for the dark box itself, because that's literally more than 70% just being dropped out of the tournament. Of course, skill level and preparation was the key. So let's look, knowing that statistic here, let's look at the top 8 cut. And as we all know, the finals were in between Mew and Mewtwo plus, versus Blacephalon. And those are, honestly, looking at the day 1 especially, where there's only 16 Mew and Mewtwo players, and one of the 16 players became the world champion. That is quite crazy, and I think no one really was preparing for that. Like, they were like, oh, you know what, there's gonna be only 16, maybe less, I don't care, like, I have a decent matchup, it's okay, I want to prepare for what I will definitely face. And you can see also that in certain Picorom's list. Of course, Picorom was number 5 by Kaiwen Kabebe, another Australian player, and you can see that for the mirror matchups with a Siglif GX. Siglif GX, quite a game changer in the mirror matchups of Picorom, and the statistics show you if you are playing Picorom at Worlds, excuse me, you were almost certain that at least 4 rounds or 5 you're gonna play against another Picorom. So definitely that is the matchup you want to prepare. That is the matchup you want to win, because people, we are not willing to change if we still have a really nice deck, and Picorom players, myself included, don't really want to go towards Reshizard. Some people are gravitating there, but not everyone, especially with the new Choo-Choo. That was really cool to see, that Siglif appear. Also, speaking of Mew Mew, of course, Mew Mew having answers to everything. Blacephalon, the brand new Naganadel GX, that was really quite a nice touch. But also, looking at Reshiram, definitely, as something that is worth noting, that Reshiram took spot number 3, 4, 6, which is quite impressive, knowing how little of them were in the day 2. Then, of course, we've got a 7th place, Mew and Mewtwo, another Mew and Mewtwo, and place number 8, Oranguru Control with PG. So, looking at all those stats, you would, if I would just give you the statistics and not give you the top 8 cut, you'll be like, yeah, Reshiram, definitely, taking it. Well, not. So, definitely, the players that, of course, the luck has to be on the side, but they were better prepared for the less likely matchups. They were the winners here. Like, you can see that, right? Playing Siglif and Picorom, 2 Jirachis, all of those different tags, like Cyrus, for example. It's quite intriguing that, it was being prepared for Malamars. And I feel like, again, people were prepared for those Malamars. They knew, okay, Malamar is the deck to beat. Reshizard is the deck to beat, Picorom, all those decks. And, well, Mew and Mewtwo, it slipped out of the radar, under the radar. It just went there, with only 16 players and 2 of them being in top 8. That is incredible. And looking at the day 2, with only 8 players in the day 2 Masters, of course, playing that particular deck, and 22 playing Picorom. That is literally, 3 or 4 times as much. Yet, those decks were better consistency. They had better consistency. They were just better prepared for specific matchups. That is, one of the things that coming to a big tournament you have to think about. Because online is okay. You can test online those best of 1 scenarios, but coming to a large tournament, not only you have to be prepared, like, let's say internationals or worlds, regionals as well, maybe cups for some people, when there's like more than 50 people. You have to be prepared for, it's like they say, if you have really nice matchup against, let's say, those other tier 1 decks, but there is a deck that is weaker but can just knock you out and it can surprise you, put those, worst matchups first, be prepared for those, because for the tier 1s, everyone is prepared. Everyone techs for them, everyone's prepared, and you will be prepared as well. But you don't have to train that much, because again, you know those matchups, you know those decks back and forth. And when you see those new decks popping, especially before the huge tournaments, and they are gaining momentum, because again, Mewtwo, Darkbox, they gain a huge momentum coming to World Championships. That's where the focus should have been. And I think the fifth Pikarom, I'm talking a lot about Pikarom, but that's the deck I play. You can see that in the list, and I think that was the best prepared Pikarom. The same goes to Charizards. They were prepared to snipe the bench. They were not even caring about the active anymore. They were all about getting it from the bench, dragging it out from your opponent on an active, and then getting rid of the danger before it gets too powerful, right? So again, different strategy, not only just going face first, bam bam bam. No, more thinking. The same with Blaze GX, of course, and Mew and Mewtwo, like Marshadow knocking out Ultra Beast. Like, who would have thought that Marshadow with the ability that gets rid of the stadium. That's not Let Loose, but I forgot the ability name. But think about little things like that. Like, hey, that's a psychic weakness. I can do that. That is my counter to that deck, and it's price trade is in my favor. Kind of, because maybe it's 1-1 in prize cards, but I'm not losing a lot, and he's losing a way to bring back the energy, right? So I said that a lot on stream. Coming to Worlds, text and details mattered, and text and details were the keys to win the Worlds, and they became that. Looking at those top 8 lists, that is exactly what happened. So, guys, if you're thinking about being competitive players, going to regionals, really be prepared for everything. Think about that. Test your least favorite matchups, because I know it's easy to test against matchup that that you played it millions of times. But what if, right? This what if scenario is really stressful, because again, Behem, that is something that no one thought. Like, online, so on the internet, coming to the Worlds, we knew that Behem will, maybe not will be a thing, but can be a thing. I've seen few lists floating around here and there, but no one thought like, hey, that might be a deck I have to beat. And that's exactly what happened. Round 3, we've got Gardevoir GX versus Behem, and Gardevoir GX without baby card. Like, a lot of people play Mimikyu Baby or anything just to counter that, and there was nothing. There was Ninetales on the board, and you can't do anything. You can only chip away 20 damage at a time with Overrun from Xernia's GX. Again, no one thought about that, and you have to think about, like, hey, what if my opponent plays Ninetales? What if my opponent can have that? Because tech cards in the current format will win games. Honestly, the more I think about the current format, the more I have in my head, okay, tech cards, this unpredictability of those cards. It's like, okay, you see Pikarom, like, all right, yeah, that's Pikarom. It's gonna have Choo Choo. It's gonna, the cards inside, and when someone plays card that you don't know, or that surprises you, it puts you off this rhythm of playing that game, because now we got like, oh wait, what else does he have? And then you start thinking what he might have, what he might not. Maybe he only changes one card, but in your head the whole process goes, what he might have. And that is, that can make you misplay or play differently. You're like, maybe I play around that card. The card that you're playing around may not even exist in his deck. But in your head, it is, because, he played this, so he might have that, right? Like, no one thought about Cyrus, Cyglyph. That is incredible. Especially the fact that it bounces back the damage. It's unpredictable. The same goes to many cards. So, what I would say, Worlds were super exciting. I'm not going to comment on Shintaro Ito's behavior or anything like that, or this last game. I've answered that too many times on Twitch, and I don't want to come back to it and just I still respect Shintaro though, and that's it, let's put it this way. So guys, what do you think about this year's Worlds? Because for me, they were exciting, and for me the format not only is going to be around the huge attackers, but also how you can outsmart your opponent without playing Guzma, without Acerola, without all that shenanigans, and what you can tech against specific matchups. So guys, thank you so much for watching. This is your boy Raven. See you on Twitch, and down there below you have a 5% discount on any purchase you're gonna make on Professor Oak. Goodbye, bam, and good night.